Trauma is a very hard thing. It comes from bad experiences. These events are scary or dangerous. They can hurt a person deeply. This hurt is not just on the body, it also affects the mind. It changes how we see the world and how we remember our lives. Our stories are part of us. Storytelling is very important for people. We tell stories about our lives. We share what happens to us. Stories help us understand things. They help us connect with others. When we tell a story, we share our feelings and thoughts. It is a way to make sense of good times and bad times. When trauma happens, stories change. It can be very hard to talk about what happened during the trauma. The memories might be confusing or parts might be missing. The story can feel broken, like pieces of a puzzle that do not fit together well. This is a common effect of trauma. This essay will talk about trauma. We will look at how it shapes stories, how it makes telling stories different. We will see why it is hard for people to share their trauma and how telling can sometimes help. Understanding this is very important. It helps us listen better and helps people who have suffered. Trauma has a big impact on memory. Our brains work hard during trauma. They try to protect us from harm. Sometimes this means memories are not clear. The brain might store memories differently, not like normal everyday memories. This is not the person's fault. It is how the brain copes with an event that is too much. Memories of trauma can be strange. Some parts might be very vivid, like a picture you cannot forget. Other parts might be missing, or they might feel jumbled up. Feelings can be very strong, even if the details are unclear. These feelings can come back suddenly, without warning. This happens because of how the brain works during a very scary time. The part of the brain for fear, it works very, very hard. The part for making organized memories, it might not work as well. So the memory is not a neat story. It is more like scattered pieces. This makes telling the story hard. So trauma disrupts how memory works. It does not create a story that flows from start to finish. Instead, it can leave gaps or strong feelings without words. Understanding this helps us see why trauma survivors tell stories in a way that might seem broken. It is the nature of trauma memory. When trauma affects memory, stories break. A story usually has a start, it has a middle part, and it has an end. Trauma stories are often different. They might start in the middle or jump between different times. This is not because someone is confused, it is how trauma is remembered. The words to describe trauma are hard. Sometimes there are no words. The experience was too big, too overwhelming for simple words. A person might feel many things, fear, pain or confusion, but finding words for these feelings can be a very big challenge. This silence is part of the trauma. Trauma narratives are often fragmented. This means they are in pieces. A survivor might tell a small part, then stop, then tell another part. These parts might not seem connected to someone listening from outside, but for the survivor, they are. They are pieces of a larger truth, a truth that is hard to hold. This fragmented way of telling is a direct result of the trauma. The brain holds the memory in bits, not as one whole smooth story. So when the person speaks, the story comes out in bits too. It is like showing someone broken glass. Each piece tells a small part of what happened to the whole. Section 4, Walls of Silence. Why sharing trauma is hard. Sharing trauma stories is often very hard. There are many reasons for this. One big reason is social. Sometimes other people do not want to hear. They might feel uncomfortable or they might not believe the story. This makes the survivor feel alone and less likely to share again. Society can build walls of silence. Cultural factors also play a big role. In some cultures, talking about pain or bad experiences is not common. People are taught to be strong and to keep private things private. This can make survivors feel shame or feel like they are bad for having experienced trauma. So they keep their stories hidden. Institutions can also create barriers. These are places like schools or police or even hospitals sometimes. If these places do not understand trauma, they might not respond in helpful ways. A survivor might not be believed, or they might be blamed. This makes trusting others very hard and makes sharing feel unsafe. These challenges create a lot of silence. Survivors often carry their stories alone. They might fear judgment from others, they might fear not being understood, or they might fear reliving the pain by putting it into words. These fears are real and powerful. Breaking these walls of silence takes courage and support from others. Section 5. Finding a voice. How talking can help heal. Talking about trauma can be a step towards healing for some people. When a person shares their story in a safe and supportive place, it can start to feel less heavy. The act of telling is important. It can help to make sense of what happened bit by bit. It's like putting pieces together. Sharing can reduce feelings of isolation. Trauma often makes people feel alone, like no one understands them. When they tell their story and someone listens with care, it can create a connection. This connection can be very healing. It shows the survivor they are not alone and that their story matters. However, talking is not for everyone and not at every time. Sometimes forcing someone to talk before they are ready can be harmful. Healing is a personal journey. Some people find healing in other ways, like through art or music or movement. These can be powerful ways too, to express what words cannot say. Alternative expressions are very valuable. Drawing a picture of a feeling, writing a poem about an experience, or moving the body to release tension. These can help process trauma without needing to tell a full story. The most important thing is choice and finding what feels right for the person who has suffered. Section 6. New words. New Hope, Linguistics and Trauma's Language. Linguistics is the study of language. It can help us understand trauma. It looks at how people use words and how trauma changes this use. For example, after trauma, people might use fewer words. That connect ideas like because, or they might use more words. That show uncertainty like maybe I. Psychology also gives us insights. It teaches us about the mind and how trauma affects thinking and how it affects emotions. When we combine psychology with linguistics, we learn more about trauma stories. We see patterns in the language that tell us about the inner world of someone who has been hurt. This understanding has practical uses. It can help therapists listen better. They can notice small changes in speech that might show where pain is hidden. It can also help create tools to help survivors find their words. For example, using prompts or images to help express difficult memories. This is part of applied linguistics. One survivor might say it was dark. Another might not speak of it, but their writing shows short sentences or a focus on small details. Linguists study these patterns. They see how trauma shapes expression. This knowledge helps us all to understand the unspoken parts of a trauma survivor's story. Section 7. Conclusion. Listening with an open heart to trauma stories. We have seen that trauma is complex. It deeply affects a person's life. It changes how memories are stored and how stories are told. Trauma narratives are often fragmented. They are not like other stories. They carry the weight of the event and the struggle to make sense of it. This understanding is the first step. There are many barriers to sharing. Social stigma can silence people. Cultural norms can make it hard to speak about painful experiences. Institutional responses can also fail. These walls make healing harder. For those who have lived through trauma, it is important to recognize these and work to break them down. Talking about trauma can help healing, but it must be in a safe way, with people who listen with care. Alternative ways to express trauma, like art or writing, are also vital. There is no one right way to heal. Linguistics and psychology help us see the unique language of trauma and how to better support survivors. The most important thing is to listen with empathy and patience. When someone shares a trauma story, they are sharing a piece of themselves, a piece that is often painful. Understanding the nature of trauma and its impact on storytelling helps us to be better listeners and better friends to those who suffer.